Okay, time for change. Change to everything and absolutely anything. But with that being said, the most obvious question could be is, how's this all to begin? And even though this is also to involve the explorative experience that is able to be described as the walk of life, this is a free exploration concerning the understanding about the notion of change. Like literally, what do we actually understand about the notion of change? Now, to avoid this from becoming a whole complete biblical saga, so to speak, it could be to reflect upon a few biblical scriptures that could lead to some insight about the understanding of the notion of change. So if we were to reflect upon the biblical scripture of Genesis 1 verse 1 to 31 and Genesis 2 verse 1 to 4, which states, "Then God began creating the heavens and the earth. The earth was at first shapeless, chaotic mass, with the Spirit of God brooding over with dark vapors. Then God said, 'Let there be light,' and light appeared. And God was pleased with it, and divided the light from darkness. So he let the light shine for a while, and then there was darkness again. He called the light daytime and the darkness nighttime. Together they formed the first day." Now, of course, there is a state of separation clearly to be noticed, whereby there is a state of separation between the heavens and the earth. There is a state of separation between the light and the dark. There is a state of separation between daytime and nighttime. There is a state of separation between the nothingness and the something. And then there's also a state of separation between the beginning and the ending. So if we were to continue, "And then God said, 'Let the vapors separate to form the sky above and the oceans below.' So God made the sky, dividing the vapor above from the water below. This all happened on the second day." Again, there's a clear state of separation to be noticed here, whereby there is now a state of separation between the skies and the waters. But again, clearly noticing that there is a state of separation between the beginning and the ending. So, to continue, "Then God said, 'Let the water beneath the sky be gathered into oceans, so that the dry land will emerge.' And so it was so. Then God named the dry land earth, and the water seas, and God was pleased. And he said, 'Let the earth burst forth with every sort of grass and seed-bearing plants, and fruit trees with seeds inside the fruit, so that the seeds will produce the kinds of plants and fruits that they came from.' And so it was, and God was pleased." This occurred on the third day. Again, there is the acknowledgement of the state of separation, whereby there is a state of separation between the skies and the waters. There's the state of separation between the beginning and the ending. But now, reflecting upon the state of separation between the skies and the waters, we are now seeing something being created in between the state of the skies and the waters. Now, if the state of separation between the beginning and the ending is easily able to be described as the journey, it's acknowledging that this journey is the state of the earth. But on a broader perspective, if I were to reflect that plants have been made on the third day of creation, right? It's acknowledging that plants are the ultimate source of knowledge on earth, right? So if we were to continue, then God said, "Let there be bright lights in the sky to give light to the earth, and to identify the day and night. They shall bring out the seasons of the earth, and mark the days and years." And so it was. For God made two huge lights, the sun and moon, to shine upon the earth. The larger one, the sun, to preside over the day, and the smaller one, the moon, to preside over the night. He also made the stars, and God set them in the sky, to light the earth, and to preside over day and night, to divide the light and from darkness, and God was pleased. This happened on the fourth day. Now, again, it's acknowledging that there is a clear state of separation being occurring here, whereby there is a state of separation between the sun and the moon, right? Whereby the sun is now to produce light for the earth, and now the moon is to produce light for nighttime. Recognizing that we are still being produced light, right? Recognizing that we are to exist in a state of light, with even stars being given unto us in the universe above us. it's acknowledging that we are to exist in a state of light, right? But with the stars being created, it's also acknowledging that the stars have now also become a source of knowledge as well, right? And that the state of difference between the sun and the moon is the state of the stars, recognizing that the stars are a journey themselves, right? So if we were to continue, right? It's also acknowledging, right? If the sun and the moon are created on the fourth day, right? It's created on the fourth day, right? It's acknowledging that the first day was not created by the sun and the moon, right? Do you understand? And the plants came to exist before the sun and the moon as well. So with that being said, right, it's then acknowledging that mycelium, right, were the veins of this earth, right? And from mycelium came giant mushrooms, right? Mushrooms, basically. But due to this uneven state, right, it's acknowledging that with so much light, I mean, if we actually reflect upon cannabis, for instance, right, the more light you give cannabis and the less darkness you give cannabis, the more it comes to grow and the bushier it comes to grow. Now it's obviously acknowledging that these mushrooms grew to a massive size, and that there is also scientific evidence to prove all of this as well. But it's also acknowledging that on the fourth day, it's acknowledging that there is the state of time being developed, right? Whereby the sun and the moon have now come to exist to create time. Whereby God does not exist within the limitations of this time. He has created this time through the sun and the moon, right? So with this being said, it's also acknowledging that there is now also a state of a difference between each day, between each week, between each month, between each year, and again between each season as well. So then to continue, then God said, let the waters teem with fish and other life, and let the skies be filled with birds of every kind. So God created sea creatures of every sort of sea creatures and every sort of fish and every kind of bird. And God looked at them with pleasure and blessed them all. Multiply and stock the oceans, he told them. And to the birds he said, let the numbers increase, fill the earth. That ended on the fifth day. Okay. Again, we're acknowledging that the sky and the ocean, there's a state of separation happening here, right? And it's called the earth, right? And it's the journey, right? But now it's acknowledging that birds have been created in the skies, and then fish and all of that have been created in the oceans, right? But of course, the earth is also to come to create through its own journey, which is easily to be acknowledged through the following. Where is it now? Okay. And God said, let the earth bring forth every kind of animal, cattle, and reptile, and wildlife of every kind. And so it was. And God was pleased with what he had done. Then God said, let us make man, someone like ourselves, to be the masters of all life upon earth, and in the skies, and in the seas. So God made man like his master. Like God did, God make man. Man and maid did he make them. Multiply and fill the earth, and subdue it. You are masters of the fish and birds, and all the animals. And look, I have given you the seed-bearing plants throughout the earth, and all the fruit trees for food. I have given all the grass and plants to the animals and birds for their food. And then God looked over all that he had made, and it was excellent in every way. This ended on the sixth day. Okay. Again, there is the state of separation between the skies and the oceans, right? But again, the earth is now the journey, right? But now it's acknowledging that on the earth, right, have come to be the existence of animals that can also fly and animals that can also swim. As with animals who can swim that come onto land, and animals that fly that come onto the onto the earth, right? So it's acknowledging that this journey is containing a lot of change, right? It's containing so much change. And now as us, as individuals, right, being described as what? So God made man like his master. Like God did, God made man, right? Again, we are being made in the image of God. Every single individual is being made in the image of God, right? Man and maid did he make them, right? Again, man and maid, made. Thus, we are to clean up this earth and not destroy this earth, right? Thus, if it's to clean up the earth, right, reflecting on your home, right? You walk into your home and you see a dirty home. The reason why you're going to clean that home is for the betterment of your own life, is to be able to find things in your home, right? So basically, I mean, you're cleaning out all this pollution. I mean, basically you're throwing out garbage and whatever. So this is basically for the betterment of life. If we are cleaning up the earth, it is for the betterment of life, right? So then it's to also continue with, then it's also to mention that if, right, for instance, if now God, right, has now given us plants to eat, right, fruit trees, clearly stipulated there is a clear indication that we aren't intended to eat animals, right? Clearly stated. In the Bible, it's clearly stating that every single individual is supposed to only eat vegetables. Thus, or fruit. Thus, we are supposed to be vegans initially, right? So, then, if I were to continue with the following, from Genesis 2, right? From Genesis 2. Oh, no. Okay. Then, to continue, now at last the heavens and the earth were successfully completed, with all that they had contained. So on the seventh day, having finished his task, God ceased from this work he had been doing. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because it was the day he had ceased this work of creation. Here is a summary of the events and the creation of the heavens and earth, and the Lord, which the Lord made. Okay, clearly indicating that this is all basically a summary, right? That it is not for count, right? Again, God does not exist with time. Thus, the state of the earth did not come to exist in 7 days, right? Basically, this is our minds clicking onto our structure of time, right? So, in God's sense, there is no time, right? But it's also acknowledging that there is a beginning and there is the ending, right? From the first day to the seventh day, there is the beginning and there is the ending. Now, the beginning can easily be described as learning, right? Learning. And then basically the ending can be described as meaning, right? And in between all of this, we have clearly come to see, or I've clearly come to state, that there is a journey constantly happening here, right? And it's a constant journey of change, right? We are constantly seeing change happening here. But in this, it's not only describing God as a creator, but it's also describing God as an architect, right? And if God is the source of life, it is then also describing God as life, right? Now, with that being said, and if we were to reflect upon the state of origination, which has come to involve the 12 different spiritual dimensional realms, right? It's acknowledging that, again, there was a state of nothingness, state of darkness, state of complete chaos, with an infinite amount of knowledge without any direction, right? With no emotional meaning towards it, no emotional meaning attached towards it. It's just all over the place. Now imagine a whole bunch of numbers just being scattered all over the place, right? This is basically what's happened, right? We think that the universe comes to bloody damn translate or communicate in our language, but maybe so, maybe not so, but initially everything has come to originate from numbers. I mean, basically, if you had to, for instance, draw a box, alright, before the box has to exist, it's to acknowledge that the box has to be given measurements, whereby you are now drawing from one point to the next point. So for instance, 5 centimeters down, 5 centimeters across, another 5 centimeters up, and so it goes forward, right? And you're going to create a box. Now, your box you can now describe as a box. It has come to exist with like meaning in its full form. Now, there has been a beginning, and there has now been the ending. Now, on this aspect, if it's to acknowledge that the 10th spiritual dimensional realm came to be a piercing of light in this infinite state of darkness, right? Whereby this piercing of light was as small as an atom, so to speak, right? But it came to exist with an infinite amount of peace, love, happiness, and freedom, right? The emotions, pure actual emotion. This is now describing the 10th spiritual dimensional realm as the state of I, right? Now, with the state of I coming to exist within this infinite amount of bloody chaotic knowledge, right? Within the 10th spiritual dimensional realm, it's obviously going to give emotional direction towards this infinite amount of knowledge, whereby it's going to now be, how could you say, being attracted, right? So it could be described as, through this infinite amount of knowledge being attracted into the state of I, right? The state of I has now come to learn this infinite amount of chaotic knowledge that it has come to sensationally attract it within its state of I, right? Now, through it coming to learn more and more knowledge, right, through numbers, right? Again, everything is directed towards numbers. For instance, if you had to look on the state of, for instance, a tattoo, right? Now, a tattoo begins with a singular dot, but it all adds up to a whole bunch of dots, right? At the end of the day, what you see is a picture on an individual's body, right? But now imagine a tattoo being created in 36 dimensional form, right? I mean, from all different angles you can see it. This is basically us. I mean, from every single direction, from 36 different angles, we are able to see ourselves, right? Now, this infinite amount of knowledge comes to be attracted, and through the 10th spiritual dimensional realm, or the state of I, coming to learn about this infinite amount of knowledge, right? It is again learning about the chaotic knowledge. Thus, through learning more and more knowledge, right, it has come to know about the infinite amount of knowledge, whereby through knowing how to create a box, right, it has now come to know how to create more boxes, right? But now the box isn't in a complete state, right? It's still in a questionable state. I mean, what can be achieved from a box? What can be achieved from a plain simple circle? What can be achieved from a triangle? These are all basic shapes that we ourselves come to learn as children. I mean, basically, you remember fitting it into this square, or fitting it that way, or fitting it, I mean, basically we learned basic shapes, right? So as it comes to learn all these basic shapes and create all these basic shapes, it's only to imagine that it now comes to create, right? Whereby, again, using the state of a circle, the state of a box, or whatever, it comes to create a whole bunch of things, right? Thus creating meaning, alright? But it's to understand between the beginning and the ending. Again, there's a journey, right? There's a journey of change happening here, right? There's the journey of coming to understand what the knowledge is all about. I mean, if the state of I is sensationally attracting, this learning, it is coming to understand the infinite amount of knowledge. Thus, the journey is a state of understanding, right? It's the state of understanding of how to create, right? Of how to create meaning, right? Now, the mere fact is, now, as the state of I comes to learn more, it comes to create again. So again, all emotional beings have come to originate from the state of I, right? But now, in this being said, it's acknowledging that within the state of I, all emotional beings have been created, right? We have already come to exist beyond our wildest imaginations, right? Now, with this being said, if it's to acknowledge this, then it's also acknowledging that the state of I has now become the state of I am, right? So if we were to reflect upon the many names that God has been given, right? Whereby God has been described as Jehovah, which means to become. He has been described as Elohim, which is the singular form of Elohim is El, which means strong one. But the most recognizing one is Yahweh, right? Now, Yahweh actually means I am, right? So the mere fact is that God is I am. But the mere fact is God isn't just emotion now. He is now knowledge, right? Information, an infinite amount of known knowledge. The state of truth, right? The state of total truth, right? Now, when this meaning comes to be created, of course, this divine being, right, as it's been stated, to be created like the Master, it's obviously that if God was once a singular atom, as we are, right, and has come to be able to be described as I am, he is then able to be described as any emotional being, right? Whereby God is able to originate, to manifest himself as an individual, animal, plant, insect, bird, fish, you name it. Any emotional being God is able to manifest himself into, right? God is an angel himself, and God is a spirit, right? Acknowledging that God was once the state of I, which was a state of pure emotion, pure actual emotion, right? That became the state of I am, right? Now, in this meaningful state of I am, caring so much for everything that it's come to create within itself, it releases everything, right? Basically, this great big burst. Now, this great big burst has again been described within the book of Genesis, right? Where it clearly states, then God said, let there be light, and light appeared, and God was pleased with it, and divided the light from darkness. So he let it shine for a while, and then there was darkness again. So he called the light daytime, and the darkness nighttime. Together they formed the first day. Now, it's acknowledging that this is only to be the Big Bang. I mean, honestly, this is straight up the Big Bang. Like, if the sun and the moon haven't come to originate yet, right, haven't come to exist yet, right, well, not originate, exist yet, it's only to describe this massive bang, right? The Big Bang Theory, basically, Stephen Hawking's Big Bang Theory, placed in complete meaning, whereby it came to light up this whole universe with such a great big bright light, right? And it came to create the heavens, right? Not just the universe, the physical state of the universe, but also came to create the heavens. Now it's to acknowledge that the heavens are beyond the physical state, right? So it's creating this infinite state of the kingdom of heaven, so to speak, the paradise, the utopia, the Zion, right? Now, from that, again, the state of Zion or utopia came to learn all this known knowledge, right? Came to learn, came to understand, came to, again, release. I mean, it's all about releasing this goodness, right? Releasing this goodness. So again, through releasing it, again, it came to create the sixth spiritual dimensional realm, which is the spiritual earth, the state of Gaia, right? The state of earth spirit, the oneness that all emotional beings on earth are to exist within. Right? This is our earthly manifestation. It's from this. It's only to imagine that, like, whatever is supposed to exist on, like, Mars, there is a planet for Mars, or a spirit for Mars, and whatever is to exist on Pluto, for instance, there's a spirit for Pluto. But the main fact is, like, our egotistical minds have come to be so mind trapped into thinking that there isn't other life. But again, if the sun is technically not even the center of the universe, basically, from the sun, 47,000 light years in all different directions is the expansive state of the universe. Now, beyond this, again, is the state of heaven, right? The infinite state of heaven, right? And then, again, beyond the state of the earth, there is the spirit of the earth, right? And then again, from within this one state of the sixth spiritual dimension, this state of Gaia, the state of Gaia also comes to learn about this knowledge and comes to understand this knowledge, and then also comes to bring meaning to this knowledge, and through creating meaning from this knowledge, it also then comes to create us, right? And now, with us existing within this sixth spiritual dimensional realm, it's only to acknowledge that as us being a speck of emotion from this divine state of I am, right? It's only to acknowledge that our speck of emotion is to again learn about this infinite amount of known knowledge, and then coming to understand about this infinite amount of known knowledge, and then through it coming to understand, it also comes to bring meaning, whereby this meaning is now this cluttered form of knowledge that has come to now accumulate into our sentient beings, and that has now come to create the physical state for us to be born into this third spiritual dimensional realm, which is the state of the earth, the physical earth. But again, from that, again, it's acknowledging that there is a beginning and then there's the ending, and in between this is the journey. Now, with this being said, if it's also to acknowledge that we have come to exist with the egotistical state of thought consciousness, we have come to exist with the emotional spirit, and we have also come to exist with the state of the emotional awareness, right? But in this, right, being stated, it's acknowledging that the egotistical mind is that of the learning, and the emotions is that of the meaning, and that the state of awareness is the state of understanding. Thus, if it's being able to distinguish between good and evil, for instance, it's acknowledging that there is a good and evil. I mean, if we are able to experience emotional happiness and emotional sadness, whereby this emotional sadness is suffering, and whereby this emotional happiness is not only happiness, but it's peace, love, freedom. It's complete. It's compassionate. It's experiencing compassion, right? A compassionate state. So, in this being said, there is a clear indication that our egotistical mind, being so distorted, I mean, it comes to state that again, we come to eat from. Going back onto biblical terms, we come to eat from the tree of knowledge, whereby we come to be influenced with the distinguishing state between good and evil. Now, if you had to reflect upon the egotistical mind, it's acknowledging that what I write now or what I read now is all basically going to be seen in the past. I mean, if I use this knowledge, if I had to, like, for instance, read this to you, and then wanting to be used it again in some other place, some other state, the only knowledge that I have to fall back onto on the egotistical mind is past knowledge, right? It's never future knowledge. The egotistical mind never knows the future, right? So it's basically constantly learning. So basically all this knowledge, but the mere factor is that the egotistical mind comes to distinguish knowledge from past knowledge, right? And this past knowledge is in a learning state. It hasn't been clearly understood, right? So the mere fact is that this past knowledge is questionable knowledge, recognizing that anything that we are able to influence the emotional beliefs to believe through this questionable knowledge is then able to be described as questionable. Thus, it even comes to state somewhere in the Bible that our own hearts shouldn't be trusted. Why? Because our egotistical minds are basically influencing our hearts of how to feel in this environment. Thus, if it were to change how we feel, it is to change the way that you think. But is that truly the case when it's not clearly understanding the knowledge? So if I were to reflect upon the state of understanding, it's understanding that there is again the egotistical mind, and then there is the emotional conscious, and again this between the two is the journey, and the journey is through the state of awareness. Now again we come to exist within this physical place, and then there's the kingdom of heaven, so to speak, and then there's also our emotional dreams. Now to die is to experience the kingdom of heaven or that of hell, so to speak. And if we were to experience this physical journey on earth, it is again experiencing a physical journey. But in our imaginations, we are also able to experience different platforms of the emotions. I mean, basically, think about it this way: if everything has come to be, I wrote it down there actually quite perfectly, right? Basically, if there is a learning, right, and there is meaning, right, in between this is the state of understanding, right? Now, if knowledge being absorbed by the egotistical mind is questionable knowledge, and knowledge known to the emotional consciousness is that of meaningful knowledge, it's acknowledging that the knowledge, that the state of awareness comes to acknowledge, sensationally acknowledge, is the state of truth, is the state of wisdom. Thus, it is our state of awareness is basically our natural spirit. It is the connection to the divine I am, basically. It is the connection, basically, I hadn't slowed it down there, but it is the connection to the divine state of I am, so to speak. I mean, basically, so if it's to acknowledge that our egotistical mind is able to influence our emotional consciousness with either a state of happiness and with a state of suffering, I mean, it's acknowledging that again there is a state of difference between these two. I mean, there's good and there's evil, and the state of difference is the journey, and the state of difference is basically either changing from good to evil or from evil to good. But a mere factor is that if we have all been described as sinners on this earth, it is only to change for the betterment of life. So if God has been described as I am, and has been described as the divine source of life, and has been described as a divine spirit of life, it is describing God as life, right? So with this being said, if I were to go into your Bible, right, and start reading the Bible, but start changing the word of God to life, right? And again acknowledging that death is connected to evil power, right? To Lucifer, Satan, the devil, you want to call it. I mean, basically people don't seem to understand that the state of suffering basically condones, permits child abuse, woman abuse, earthly abuse. I mean, whale killing, lion hunting, you name it. I mean, it's all basically for the name of profit. So if you're going to stand for the state of evil, you got to understand what you basically understand, like standing for. I mean, you are literally standing for the destruction of life, right? So if God is life, the devil is death. And again, if you are standing with evil, you are standing for the destruction of life, whereby you are standing for the destruction of God, so to speak. Does that not make more sense? So it's understanding that it's through the state of awareness that we are to truly understand how we are to emotionally change, right? So if it's to learn through the egotistical mind to be influenced by meaning, right, it's to bring this into a state of understanding. And the only way that we are able to bring this through a state of understanding is through the state of meditation. You understand what I'm saying? So the mere fact is that we got to recognize that and realize that meditation should be a part of our daily lifestyles. I mean, this is how we will come to understand the state of truth, the state of wisdom. I mean, basically, this is where, again, wisdom comes from. So, with that being said, if it's then to acknowledge that everything is a journey, right? And that, again, if we have come to originate from this, in this third spiritual dimensional realm, and there is a beginning and an ending, and we have come to experience physical happiness, mental happiness, emotional happiness. We have come to experience physical suffering, mental suffering, emotional suffering. Once is to leave this plane, right? If it's to acknowledge that we have come to exist from nothing, right? That basically means that you have come to exist without meaning and without question. Whereby that means that a plant has more relevancy to exist than your own existence if you have come to believe that you have originated from absolutely nothing. I mean, you have come to exist without purpose, you have come to exist without meaning, again, and you have come to exist without understanding, right? So basically, again, a plant has more right to exist than that, right? So the mere fact is, who am I to say this? I mean, I'm for the betterment of life at the end of the day. I seek the betterment of life. And death is not the answer. Death has never been the answer. And the mere fact is, within saying this, it's also understanding that once we are to leave this world, has any one of us ever come to experience the afterlife? No. Nobody has actually come to experience. There have been encounters of individuals leaving this life for maybe about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, and they have come back with this statement saying that there is a state of white light. I have experienced ayahuasca, and I've come back saying that there is a state of white light. I've heard other people also come out with it, and they've also stated that there is a state of white light. There is something beyond this, right? So the mere fact is, in this and being saying this, is we cannot deny that the mere fact of denying that the possibility that there is the eternal life and that there is pure happiness to be experienced. We cannot deny this possibility, and the mere fact is we cannot deny this possibility that there is a state of suffering to be experienced. I mean, for instance, the mere fact is if for instance, if evil has been able to be recognized, noticed, realized within this physical plane, whereby the evil that we are clearly able to, how could you say, notice from that of the devil is either the goat or that of the serpent. Now the serpent is literally the devil, and the goat is more associated with the sun god Ra, right, which is also associated with the underworld. Now if you had to go back onto all these different religious contexts, right, they've all come to describe this underworld, basically. So we can't deny the mere fact is that there is a positive and there is a negative. There is a positive and there is a negative, right? And between these two is change. Again, there is a positive atom and there is a negative atom, and between the two, as they come together, there is change. And so we can only understand that if it's to acknowledge that we have come to exist as sinners, it's to emotionally understand that we need to change for the betterment of life. And this is basically changing for emotional peace, emotional happiness, emotional freedom, emotional truth, all the emotional states of positivity that we could possibly experience in this life and beyond this life. I mean, to deny the mere fact is that I can't come into a state of happiness because I am not where I want to be. The mere fact is that is a want and that is a desirement, and the mere fact is of me not living up to that desirement is only going to cause me suffering. So the mere fact is me moving into acceptance. I might not like the place where I'm existing in, but I'm not allowing the place where I'm at to affect my emotional happiness. It's again coming into an understanding through the state of awareness that is able to actually change us, recognizing that through psychedelics, through meditation with cannabis, we are able to discover a state of understanding and a state of emotional truth and wisdom within ourselves, to emotionally understand how we are to emotionally change on this emotional journey that we are in, right? Again, at the end of the day, we are to leave this and to descend into the second spiritual dimensional realm, and that will be divided. There is a clear state of separation whereby there is only going to be the positive and the negative. And if we are able to explore horrific dreams, nightmares, within our state of imagination through the state of lucid dreaming, which is the state of meditation while sleeping, it's then only to acknowledge that there is a state of horror beyond this physical plane, and if we are able to emotionally and explore and experience a state of happiness within our emotional imagination, whereby it's either through psychedelics, meditation, or through the lucid dreaming, there is a state of happiness to be experienced beyond this life. And again, it's only to recognize that, again, the second spiritual dimensional realm is you basically purgatory. Where are you going? And then the first spiritual dimensional realm is the state of meaning, where you will eventually land up. And basically, as the Bible comes to state, and every other person comes to state, Buddha, the state of reincarnation is gonna no longer exist. Thus, we have come to exist this plane for meaning. And if you have not discovered that meaning, I mean, the mere fact is it's all about discovering the meaning within ourselves. So with that being said, it could be to reflect upon the chakra system, right? Whereby, again, this is our churches, right? So the mere fact is, if the root chakra, I mean, if you had to explore, who are you as the root chakra, right? Are you more attached to chastity, or are you more going for lust, wanting to be a jackrabbit everywhere? Towards the sacral chakra, like, how do you feel? Do you feel more patient with life, or do you feel greed on you? The solar plexus chakra, what do you do? I mean, are you more giving, caring, more supportive on other aspects, or are you, how could you say, greedy, basically? Okay, so basically the sacral is gluttony. Okay, so let's go this. The root chakra is who are you, right? And it's basically is your chastity or lust. Are you going to be a jackrabbit, or are you going to maintain self-control and wait for that special individual? And sacral chakra, how do you feel? How do you feel that you keep on wanting more, Or do you feel that you are patient with life, right? With the solar plexus, what do? I mean, are you more giving and caring, or are you full of greed? The heart chakra, what do you love? Are you more passionate? Are you determined? Are you perseverant? Are you for life? Or are you concentrating on laziness, hesitation, fearful, doubt, all these blocks that are preventing you from living life, from experiencing life? The throat chakra, what do you say? Are you more of accepting and forgiving, or are you full of anger, wrath, hate, revenge? The third eye chakra, what do you see in yourself? I mean, are you, again, kind, or are you jealous, full of envy? The crown chakra, what do you understand about yourself? Are you humble in this life? Are you actually seeing yourself as equals in this life? As equals upon everything in this life? I mean, the mere fact of saying, I should be proud of myself, is the mere fact is that I should hold myself above somebody else, or he should be proud of them. The mere fact is that person now should be held above all other people. There's no humble into that, whereby crown is now directed towards pride and to the 7 deadly sins, whereby now it's being full of pride. I mean, this is now the state of hierarchy. This is now the state of, I've achieved it, boastful, basically. And then it's basically reflecting upon ourselves and coming to understand how we should emotionally change within ourselves, and that being said. So the mere fact is the understanding of the notion of change is recognizing that there is a state of separation, and that this state of separation cannot be denied. It is clearly there, and that this state of separation is the journey, and that the state of separation is understanding of how to bring meaning, whereby again, if it's to learn, it's to understand of how to create meaning. So if that's been with an equal understanding, so be it. Okay, so I'm mentioning the walk of life, where this is to be a 420-kilometer journey that is to be entirely walked, where it's to discover, practice and create the meaning of life. And of course, it would be acknowledging that this journey will be explored and experienced during the season of summer. And yet, if it were to reflect upon the following quote, which comes to state, what we decide today is able to affect the future. Of course, this is easily able to be directed towards the state of choice, but it is also able to involve the universal law of cause and effect. Yet, if the past is able to be described as the beginning, and the future being described as the ending, whereby the past is being described as the learning state, and the future is now being described as the state of meaning, whereby the state of difference between these two is the state of the present, of which is the journey, whereby this is the emotional journey to emotionally understanding of how to creatively produce the state of meaning within the future. But if it were to reflect upon yourself standing in front of a wall with a ball in your hand, right? In this state, you are in the present. And as you come to throw the ball against the wall will be bouncing back off the wall back into your hands, whereby bringing the ball back into the present, whereby this has now created a flow of motion of the present into the future, and from the future back into the present, right? Whereby it's now from this future present state that you are now able to decide, are you going to walk away or are you going to throw the ball again? However, if you never came to throw the ball at all, right, you would be existing in the present state, whereby you will not be affecting the past and you will not be affecting the future, right? You will just be merely existing, right? So in you again, okay, if you had to decide to walk away from the wall, right, and even this notion in deciding you walking away from the wall, you are now bringing yourself back into the present, right? So it's again acknowledging that the past is now actually affecting the future, which is now going to bringing you back into the present, right? So if you had to even throw the ball again, it's the future present into the future that will be bringing you back into the present, recognizing that the future present now becomes the past, into the future back into the present, if you're getting my notion here. So, and this being said, in rather not looking at the phrase of what we decide to do, what we decide today is able to affect the future. What if we were to reflect upon the quote that comes to state, what we decide in the present is not only able to affect the future, but is also able to affect the past as well. Especially when it's to acknowledge that we exist within accordance to time, right? And time is constantly moving forward. Whereby if we had to reflect upon the state of a clock, right, it's constantly seeing that the seconds are constantly moving forward, right? But the future is always to be one step ahead of the present, right? So whatever we decide is always going to be bringing us back into the present, right? We are constantly existing in the present, whereby it's then to acknowledge that the present, of course, will become past. So again, what we decide in the present is not only able to affect the future, but is also able to affect the past as well. Right? You understand what I'm getting at here? So, with that being with an equal understanding, may the lovers keep on loving and the haters keep on hating, and just know that it is with this flow of motion, right, that I have come to approach this emotional journey that is to be explored and experienced, whereby I'm constantly moving forward and coming to emotionally understand of how to emotionally creatively produce this state of meaning, of which is again going to bring, not only going to be bringing me into the present, but will also be affecting my past as well. So again, with the lovers, may the lovers keep on loving and the haters keep on hating, and within that being with equal understanding, may it be so. Namaste. Bless you.